My name is Maiken Korsager, and I will, on the behalf of my research group, Berit Reitan, Maria Gåredal, Aud Ragnhild Skaar, and Merete Frøyland from the Norwegian Center for Science Education, University of Oslo in Norway, present our study, The Art of Designing a Professional Development Program for Teachers. The aim of our research is to fill the gap between theoretical principles and operationalized features in a professional development program. Within our research field, research on teacher professional development, there are a common agreement that a number of theoretical features underlie effective professional development programs. These are that there should be a focus on the content, the participants should be engaged in active learning and collective participation. The program should last for a certain duration. There should be a coherence between what's taught in the program and the teacher's practice in the classroom. There are also studies showing that teachers should participate voluntarily and get some support and coaching. However, there are some challenges. Several large-scale studies of such program, which has been designed with those features I just mentioned, which have not shown any positive effect. Critique is not directed towards the relevance of these features. Rather, the features are not specific enough, which make them difficult to operationalize when designing professional development programs. Another concern is that the features do not automatically help teachers to enact new ideas and translate them into the context of their own practice. So how can we help teachers with this? Some years ago, Mary Kennedy did a review study exploring on what methods different professional development programs use to facilitate teachers' enactment in the classroom. She identified 4 methods and described them as prescriptions. Prescription is a concrete recipe demonstrating the best way for teachers to address a particular problem. For example, how to teach for deep learning. Strategies are kind of a tool which can help teachers to achieve a specific goal. For example, features of deep learning contra surface learning. Insight refers to questions which force teachers to see new perspective on familiar events and reflect on their own practice in the light of theory. And then we have body of knowledge, which is characterized as knowledge organized into a coherent body of interrelated concepts and principles, often summarized in books or lectures. She furthermore explored the effectiveness of these methods. She found that professional development programs dominated by prescriptions gave the least effect, followed by body of knowledge. Insight alone had a low effect, but when it was combined with strategies, the effectiveness increased. In the end, professional development programs based on strategies were in general the most effective ones. In our research, we have focused on how teachers learn in the professional development program, and therefore taking into account the features of effective professional development. However, we are furthermore concerned of how to help teachers to enact on their new insight in their classroom. We have therefore taken into account methods for facilitating teachers' enactment. We have then combined these 2 dimensions in a framework for professional development programs, which you see here. Theoretically, the features described provide support for teachers to process and internalize the theory they get in the program, whereas horizontally, methods for enactment should help teachers to realize the theory in their practice. In our work, we call each of these rubrics for a component. In our study, we have explored 2 research questions. However, in this presentation, I will mainly concentrate on the second one, which is how do components of a PD model influence teachers' competence development? The PD model explored in this study was from the Norwegian Professional Development Program called Math and Science Trail, MAST. The aim of MAST is to support teachers' competence development in teaching mathematics and science. All the resources are on a web page and they are free and they are detailed step-by-step instructions. Resources support school leaders or teachers in facilitating their own local community on their own without any external support. Within MAST, there are modules with different topics. Each module contains 4 stages. The context of this study is a module on deep learning. In the first stage, the teachers read an article individually. In the second stage, they work collaboratively for an hour and a half with different tasks. For example, discussing, using strategies, doing a learning activity, and then discuss it in the light of theory. In the third stage, they implement their new insight in their classroom, doing some kind of activity with students and reflect on what happened. And they meet again in a second collaborative learning session with their colleagues and talk about, reflect, and interpret what happened in their classroom using the theory and insight at the first collaborative learning session. In our study, we have collected multiple sources in order to analyze and compare how theoretical principles from the PD model was operationalized, hence realized, and how this influenced on teachers. This presentation will focus on the third step of analysis, which is the transcriptions from an interview 3 weeks after we ended the module with the teachers. And to do the analysis, we have applied the framework for professional development programs. In the results, we see different things. The first one is that the learning activity or description, which the teachers used in the first collaborative session, worked as a catalyst for the teachers' competence development. Furthermore, we saw that the teachers extended the collaboration after this session, adding time in teams to plan a common learning activities for implementation. Both of the teacher teams we followed, it was first grade and fifth grade teachers, decided to design and implement the learning activity very similar to the one from the collaborative learning session, only changing the content. The reason for this was, as one teacher said, we were very inspired when we learned about the learning activities we tried out together. We discussed how to adapt it and use it in our teaching. In the third stage, the teachers carry out the jointly planned learning activity with students. And in the last collaborative session, the teachers did not use the reflection questions to reflect on their students' deep learning as it was intended. However, they just presented their experiences from their classroom. The presentations were very descriptive, telling. However, from analyzing the interviews, it showed out that the teachers actually had discussed how the learning activity facilitated for the students' deep learning, a team meeting for the collaborative learning session. This is what they said. But giving the possibility to reflect on our teaching practice before we were going to present it. This was very useful because we discussed not only what to present, but also why things happened. We then had to reflect much more than we do after an ordinary lesson. To sum this up, we saw that the prescription was a catalyst for the teacher's professional development. However, professional development programs dominated by prescriptions, according to Kennedy, have the lowest effect on the teacher's professional development. However, in our study, the learning activity contributed to the content of the teacher's discussion, and it also seemed to have a unifying role. Furthermore, we saw teachers did not use the insight or reflection question, but still getting insight. According to previous studies, this would expectedly have led to less insight, because just sharing ideas among teachers has not in itself been found to support their professional development. However, it was not the teachers' sharing of experiences with their colleagues that positively influenced their competence development. It was the preparation for sharing. What we have learned from this study is that using this framework gave us insight to how components in a professional development program support teachers to process and internalize the theory and help them to realize the theory in practice. Furthermore, we learned that the prescription was essential for the teachers when they operationalized theory, and that it provided important content for their reflections and discussions. The implication from this study is that all the modules in MAST have been revised and now include a prescription. Furthermore, we have now more explicit guidance in the modules on how to share in the second collaborative session, so the teachers get insight. Overall, the framework is now guiding our work for professional development program at the Norwegian Center for Science Education to get insight to and to ensure development of teachers to a greater extent. Thank you.